Hi guys, in learning outcome number 4 of module 10, we will be covering the organization of the nervous system. As we can see over here on this image of a freshly dissected section of the brain, but this will also happen on a spinal cord, some of the regions they will look white and in others they will appear gray. So this is why some areas are called the white matter and the gray areas are called the gray matter. Now, the white matter is going to be made up of this aggregation of the myelinated and unmyelinated axons of many neurons. And this whitish color comes from the myelin because remember that the myelin is made up of lipid, and lipid is sort of whitish. So this is why the white matter is going to look white. So it makes sense, right? Everything makes sense. Now, the gray matter of the nervous system, it will contain actually the neuronal cell bodies and the dendrites of the unmyelinated axons and also the axon terminals and the neuroglias. And this is why it appears grayish because there's very little or actually no myelin at all in these areas. Now, the blood vessels will be present in both the white and the gray matter. Now, why is it that you will find glial cells in the gray area? Well, remember that the main function of the glial cells is to support the neurons and mainly the neuronal cell body because that will be the part that will contain the control center of the neuron, which are the cell body, the nucleus, the organelles. Therefore, it makes sense to have the glial cells in that region. In the spinal cord, as we can see over here, the white matter will surround this inner core of gray matter that's shaped like a butterfly or the letter H in a transverse section. And in the brain, a thin shell of gray matter is actually going to cover the surface of the largest portion of the brain, which is the cerebrum and the cerebellum. But this image here is showing just a section of the brain. And on the inside, you will find the white matter. This side is to compare the nucleus and the ganglia. Remember that in the peripheral nervous system, we had the ganglia. So when we're talking about two, one on each side, so this is your ganglia. This is your spinal cord. You can see we have two, one on each side. And this will contain, if you can recall, the cell body of a neuron. More specifically, it will contain the cell body of the unipolar neuron, which is the first sensory neuron that's going from the area that is receiving the sensory input and taking that information all the way to the central nervous system. Now, the nuclei are going to be present in the central nervous system. So it will be a cluster of neuronal cell bodies that is located within the central nervous system. And in this example, we can see circulated over here the nucleus in this brain region. The word nucleus in general can be defined as this central point. That's why on this image over here, we can have the nucleus of this atom, or when we're referring to a cell, the nucleus of the cell will be the central point of the cell where most of the processes occur. And here in the brain, the nucleus is a point where, again, you will have a lot of neuronal cell bodies and therefore a lot of action potential, a lot of information will derive from this point or from this nucleus. Now, because we have areas that have bundles of neuronal cell bodies, we also have areas that will consist of bundles of axons. If they are located in the central nervous system, they will be called tracts. If they are located in the peripheral nervous system, they will only be called nerves. So in this example, we're talking about the nerve and the tracts that go from the eye. So this is your left eye, this would be your right eye. Because these are located on the peripheral nervous system, they are called nerves. So you're going to have the optic nerve that will take this information to be processed all the way back here in the occipital lobe. And on this trajectory, Notice how the nerves will cross at this region right over here, which is called the optic chiasm. And once they cross, they will be entering into the brain. Therefore, when they enter into the brain, these will now be called optic tracts. And the tracts will go all the way, like I said, back to the occipital lobe or the visual cortex, where this information will be processed.